Hello, my name is Sarah Coderre. I'm a lawyer at Bow River Law in Calgary, which is an employment and labor law and human rights law boutique firm. Today, I'm going to be answering the question, should I file a harassment complaint? Whether you decide to file a harassment complaint is going to depend on a lot of things in your circumstances. First of all, do you have someone to file a complaint with? Most large companies will have a human resources department. In many cases as well, many companies will have a formal policy outlining how to submit a harassment complaint. If you're in a company that has a large human resources department and has a formal policy, the first step to figure out whether or not you should file anything is to go to that policy and see what steps it outlines you should take in the event you feel you've been harassed at work. Oftentimes, there is a series of steps that need to be taken prior to a formal complaint. In most cases, that would first require that you go and speak with the offending party and make sure they understand the conduct is unwelcome. From there, in many cases, it will require that you escalate the matter if it's not resolved, to then go and speak to your manager or your team lead. And then from there, if there's no resolution, then you do go ahead and you file a human resources harassment complaint. That said, a lot of clients that come and see us and get services from us after they filed a harassment complaint oftentimes express how disappointed they are that after they filed the complaint, nothing was really done by human resources to resolve their issue. And that raises an important point that you should keep in mind before you consider whether or not you move forward, which is, what are your ultimate goals in filing this harassment complaint? Oftentimes, people expect that human resources will swoop in and resolve the issue, but they fail to recognize that human resources is not really there, strictly speaking, to protect individual employees from misconduct that happens in the workplace. They are there to ensure that liabilities associated with human resources or personnel in the workplace identified and addressed appropriately at an early stage. So in some cases, that may mean that when your human resources complaint has been filed with or your harassment complaint, I should say, is filed with human resources, that they will then go ahead, take some steps to investigate and try to resolve the issue. In other cases, however, if they don't think that the issue is serious enough, they may tell you to go back and take a look at the policy and go and speak with the person who's caused the offense or who's harassing you and try to resolve it that way. And so I think it's really important when you first set out to file a complaint to try and understand what your objectives are. Are you trying to highlight an issue and maybe a broader period or pattern of behavior that you see somebody engaging in that should be addressed or should at least get on the company's radar? Or are you hoping for a deeper, longer lasting change and impact? And in some cases, what people feel they want is to see the person who's been harassing them punished. And I can tell you from my experience and from what I've seen, that it's very unlikely that if somebody has been found to have harassed you in the workplace, so you submit a complaint and an investigation is done and it's deemed that there's harassment, that frankly, all you will ever know is that that was what the conclusion was. You won't know what steps the company took to deal with that person. You won't know if that person is going to have a written warning or a verbal reprimand or what have you. Hopefully, you should see some changes in how they treat you going forward if they're still employed with the company. But primarily, the main reason here is that every employee's privacy rights in the workplace are to be protected. And so, out of privacy for the person who harassed you, the company can't tell you what steps they took to deal with the problem. And so, in filing the complaint, in order to manage your own expectations, it's really important to try to understand what you're trying to achieve by filing the complaint. If you simply want the harassing behavior to stop, then filing a complaint can be a good way to do that. If you want the behavior to stop and you also want to ensure that the other person is punished or there are significant consequences for them, then perhaps filing that complaint is not going to give you what you ultimately want. At the end of the day, harassment in the workplace is a multifaceted issue. Sometimes it's something that can be resolved and parties can continue to work together, but other times it can actually cause the erosion and the breakdown of the employment relationship. And in those cases, the employee who's being harassed may actually be constructively dismissed from their employment. Anytime you feel that you've been harassed in the workplace and you're not sure whether or not you should file a human resources harassment complaint, or if you should make a verbal complaint about what's happening to your manager, it's always best to check with an employment lawyer who specializes and has experience in these sorts of issues to give you some guidance, not just about the complaint itself and what you may or may want to include in it, but to also look at the bigger picture and how this harassment fits within the context of your employment and what it might mean for your rights as an employee.